everyone, welcome to the Finance Story, to our Building a Career Overseas series. So every Wednesday and Thursday, we invite finance professionals from different parts of the world, to actually understand opportunities and how they made the transition. So the way the GCC regions are evolving, especially the UAE and Saudi Arabia, professionals from all over the world, are very curious to know and to understand how they can find opportunities here. Even the professionals who are already in the Middle East, want to know how they could grow further and what's happening, in the industry, especially the financial services industry, because, we are the finance story. So today at the finance story, I'm really excited to speak with Oscar. Okay, so Oscar heads the financial services recruitment Middle East at Robert Walters. So he will help us decode, the hiring in the financial services sector in the UAE. A little bit about Oscar. So Oscar helps in placing high caliber finance professionals and banking professionals, across the Middle East. He also offers expert market insights to both clients and candidates. So Oscar, thank you so much for joining us and, for making the time and making this happen.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yes. So Oscar, let's dive in. My first question is, can you give us an overview of the financial services sector in the UAE? Okay, it says that it contributes to almost 10% of the UAE's GDP, including the insurance sector. So can you just give us an overview? What do you mean by the financial services sector, and what are the core activities in the FS sector?
Yeah, of course. And again, thank you so much for having me on, Chantal. I really, really do appreciate it. As you say, my name is Oscar Orellana Hyder. I head up financial services recruitment for Robert Walters Middle East. Good question, really, really broad one. I think it's all encompassing, isn't it? I mean, the most obvious is the banks, of course, and that in this region we have a lot of Islamic banking taking place, that are Sharia compliant activities that you've got to be aware of as well. I think I am sat in the DIFC, so that's a free zone, the Dubai International Financial Centre. Think of it as a Canary Wharf, a Wall Street, a financial free zone, geographical area where most financial services companies set up. Now that includes funds, buy side, private equity funds, family offices. There are also a wealth of sovereign capital that is here in Abu Dhabi and Dubai, so sovereign wealth funds. Yes, you rightly alluded to insurance, foreign exchange providers. There's hundreds of foreign exchange businesses here at the same time. Providers, so service providers, compliance service providers, finance service providers, everything that is around the regulator, so risk, governance, and compliance, as I've already mentioned. So there are so many different facets to name. I mean, that names a few, and also complementing that established granddaddy sectors of banks and insurance, we now have the Fintech hive in the DIFC. We have the innovation lab in the DIFC in Dubai. We have WeWorks, the Hub 71 sandbox in Abu Dhabi, in the ADGM in Abu Dhabi Global Market. So there are so many subsectors that are complementing the granddaddy sectors of financial services that are relatively new to the sector as well.
Okay, so that's interesting. So from what you've told me, okay, so I'll just break it down a little bit. You said the financial services sector in the UAE, okay, is made up of banking, insurance, capital markets, okay, and Islamic finance, correct?
Yeah, I mean those are four elements, but of course you've got the new wave of finance, the hedge funds. So buy side direct investments is incredibly popular here. Historically, using that oil wealth of generations gone by, now it's directly investing into tech and the building for the next 50 years. So I mean there are literally tens of subsectors, but yeah, as a whole in general, you're right. Yeah, correct.
Okay, and when you mentioned about DIFC, so DIFC is the Dubai International Financial Center. It's a free zone focused on the financial industry as a whole, right?
Yep,
So
that's right.
okay, and okay, so Robert, since you've been in Dubai since 2016 and heading the entire FS recruitment, Tell us more about the roles that you hire for. Okay, and what kind of clients do you look at?
Yeah, it's a good question. We are able to and we can hire for any types of roles in financial services. We don't hire for any type and every type. We have positioned our business in the DIFC, the regulated. So every business in the DIFC that is operating a financial services license is fully regulated, and it's scrutinized, and it's under UK English common law. They have very high levels of, as I've alluded to, compliance, risk, and governance. So what that means is 10 of the roles that we recruit for are driven by the regulator: accountants, compliance, risk, operations, middle office, and lawyers, technology behind the funds. So business critical roles that are almost completely sort of garnered by the regulator, given by the regulator. The private bankers, they know each other. The forex dealers, they know each other. 9 times out of 10, they move each other by themselves. They don't need us. What those businesses do need is people that they don't know in their sector from the regulated and professional services. So qualified accountants, for example, qualified chartered compliance, association of chartered compliance money laundering officers, KYC, the real detailed oriented people that are appreciated by the regulator, maybe not always appreciated by the traders and the front office guys, but it's a requirement. So you have to have it in one way, shape, or form. Those are the types of roles that we recruit for predominantly. I have a team of people around me, which are phenomenal: Assad, Jeremy, Marina, and others who have got subsectors. We focus on asset management. We have an insurance specialist, and also we cover the whole of the GCC. So we are able to recruit in Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain, and of course Saudi Arabia.
Wow, that's interesting. Okay, so Oscar, from what I'm understanding, you're hiring for a lot of accountants, compliance
Mm.
professionals, forensic professionals, money laundering, AML who understands anti-money laundering.
Mhm.
So you're handling for a lot of professionals to help in the front office aspect of the businesses.
If you don't mind me, I'll sort of interject, and it's more middle and back office. I mean, compliance and finance is back office. It's historically viewed as support, but I think that they're being alluded to as the business now. But yes, you're right. As opposed to real front office traders, and it depends. Within direct investments, within my sovereign wealth clients in Abu Dhabi, or direct investment vehicles here, they are effectively investment. A lot of them have started their career in investment banking and moved across to the buy side. And those types of positions, yes, of course, we recruit for, because it's not as small a network as a private banking network. But yeah, we're not the sort of agency. Robert Walters is a FTSE 250. We've been in the DIFC 10 years. We're not the sort of agency that recruits sort of your sales manager or your business development guy for your forex team immediately. We have done in the past, and we can do that, but I think we've grown, and we've built a business of almost 50 people, with 48 people in the DIFC now. So we have scaled our model, and that's where the regulator has kind of alluded to that we focus our efforts on, basically.
Okay, that's exciting. Okay, so Rob, Oscar, my next question is, okay, you have a team of 40 people looking to the hirings at DIFC. That's what you mentioned, a team of 40 to 50,
48 based in the DIFC, covering the whole of the GCC. So
covering the whole.
recruiting across the Gulf countries.
Okay, so Oscar, at the finance story, most of the people watching it and who are our readers on our website, they are finance controllers into FP&A,
Mm.
finance guys, chartered accountants, CFAs. Okay, so they want to understand what opportunities can they find. Okay, now I understand you don't hire for every single role, but you look, as you mentioned in your profile, high caliber professionals, right?
Mm.
So So if I'm a CFO, say in South Africa or in India or in the UK, okay, how
Yeah.
do I get to these roles? Okay, how do I get to these roles? Because as you mentioned, these roles are not available on, on LinkedIn. Hey, I'm hiring for a CFO
Yep.
or a financial director. So how do you get to these roles? Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good question. I get asked that a lot, and you're absolutely right. We have 55 offices in our group at Robert Walters. We are the most popular office in terms of advert traffic. So we get, on average, we get 5,000 applicants to one advert that we put online. And sadly, human nature, we can't reply to all 5,000, and chances are there might not even be one that's right for that role out of the 5,000. So unfortunately, in this region, we've not relied on adverts, and we've not done a lot of advertising en masse for those types of roles. The best way about it, honestly, is human interaction. Is doing this. Is reaching out on LinkedIn, connecting, having a phone call, speaking to the individual, trying your very best to get a recruiter listening to your story, in your corner, fighting for your pitch and your application. The best way to go about it is a flying visit, a working visit to the target country, whatever country it is. If you want to work there, you have to have some commitment to the region. We used to get asked that a lot. Commitment. What is your commitment to the region? And I, from, as you can tell, very English. I can't say from London. A bit of sun, bit of tax free. You have to have some sort of real, tangible commitment to the region. Um, but I generally say that is the best way to go about it. Human interaction, in a positive way. You don't want to chase off a recruiter. You don't want to pester a recruiter so they never come back to you. But you want to keep in touch with them, check in, touch base every 2-3 weeks, and be on their radar basically. So as soon as the next, because our role is incredibly unpredictable. We can get a role in tomorrow. We can, from a business that we've been looking at, or we can get a role in 6 months. We don't have a crystal ball. We cannot predict what's going to happen tomorrow. So you have to be at the forefront of that recruiter's mind, or every couple of weeks or every few weeks, just checking in and being on their radar for them to reach out when the time's right, essentially.
Okay, that's interesting. So, Oscar, when you're looking at middle, like roles where the compensation is up to say 25,000 or 30,000 dirhams a month, okay, there are several opportunities available, right? But when you go on the higher end, okay, there are not many opportunities available, but there are a lot
Mm,
of people who are curious, like, hey, you know what, I'm doing so well. I want to get a role as a senior professional.
mm.
How should they go about? I know they cannot bombard recruiters with messages. I know they have to be in the region and network a bit, but it's not so easy, right? So everyone can.
It's not.
So how do they go about, and how competitive is the market? So for one role, how many applicants, and how do you decide who is fit for what role?
Yeah, it's a $1 million question, and as I say, if I had all the answers and I had a crystal ball, I wouldn't be sat here talking to you, Chantel, as pleasant as it is. I, a lot of it nowadays comes down to um, soft skills, interaction, soft ideas. Technicals are technicals, great, and those can be easily proven. I think the best people who I've recruited over the years have got phenomenal soft skills, are incredibly like emotive, emotionally intelligent, EQ, as opposed to IQ. And then people talk about emotional capital as well, about how much of your brain takes into account the emotional side of this conversation, as to just the hard and fast technicals of, okay, great, I'm the best CFO on the market, I should be paid X. It's more about thinking of the scenario and positioning yourself in order to get that role. $1 million question: how do you get the role? You've got to differentiate yourself as well. Competition is high. You're absolutely right. It's getting higher and harder, and the bar is getting harder. And look, we're all facing it. There will be some sort of downturn this year. There will be a soft recession at some point this summer. You've got to come out of that with a differentiator. Whether that's another course for something, or whether that's a license for something, a different, whatever your profession may be, try and keep yourself updated with the current norms and the different regulations coming in, the macro outlook. I've had a lot of people actually leave the region, um, briefly take a sort of a pause in their Middle Eastern journey, go away, study in a developed geography for some reason, whatever it may be, as a hiatus in their career, in order to further it when they come back. And they've committed to coming back. They feel like they need to differentiate themselves. So whatever that means to you in your sector, I think differentiate yourself as best as possible. Soft skills, and again, you can't teach soft skills, but all you can do is be a little bit more conscious that if there are you talk about competition, and on average we send, depending on the role and the function, but we try our very best to send not more than sort of anywhere between 5 to probably 12 CVs maximum per job. And if you've got thousands of people coming back to you, it's very difficult to whittle it down. So um, you've got to differentiate yourself amongst that group. You've got to try and put your best foot forward in terms of your network. I think people really underestimate a network as well. I think networking in this day and age is really powerful. And it's not who you know, not what you know, but if you are part of um, a leadership group, if you are part of a thought process community or a networking business professional group that you portray, and that you can add value to the people that are part of that, then yeah, I think it can stand you in some good stead with other peers in the market that have not bothered to attend that event, or have not bothered to invest in their sort of social circle out of work. I think a network is really just as important.
That's a very good point, Oscar, because, whenever anyone sends me a CV, I say, what, network with others. But I don't define it clearly. What do you mean by networking? So, they feel,
Yeah,
hey, what, let's just meet over coffee. And that doesn't really help because you can't meet so many people over coffee. So, but
yeah.
being a part of professional groups and, regularly, without intention of, hey, what, I need a favor, or I need a job, you
Mm,
just meet people that really adds great value. So I think that's a great point. So everyone
I
watching
agree.
should be a part of various networks. That really helps you meet new people.
No, I agree, definitely. And you learn from people as well, like a subconscious byproduct of that is that you pick up stuff, and you appreciate things from other people that you didn't really thought you'd learn, or you didn't really expect to garner such information. Whereas, for example, I've just hosted 50 women in direct investments, in alternative investments, in a restaurant in the DIFC. And so many of them are like, yeah, this is great, but actually I've learned something from each of these meetings, and I've met someone different, and I've added to my own learning and own growth. And you can't get that from a textbook, and you can't get that from your boardroom. And those sort of gems are, in my opinion, invaluable.
Okay, so if there are CFOs watching, of or financial controllers watching this, auditors watching this, any group that comes to your mind where they could network and meet, any, or we could
Yeah,
add, yeah.
yeah, definitely. I think you need to do your own due diligence. You need to dig around. I think the only, there will be groups, there will be CFO clubs, there'll be round tables laid on. I think it's just about finding your niche and finding your specific. So, for example, I've had a lot of investors, a lot of LPs, and a lot of principals come to me and say, we are a bit of a boys' club, but we've got too many men, and we'd love to hire a woman on X role and X function. So I've been very focused, and I've had a mini crusade over the last, I don't know, 2 years or so, to get more women into these direct alternative funds. So I've scoped out, and I've done my own due diligence, and I've found a networking group of men that have been invited to women's groups, and I've kindly sort of slowly over time, garnered, naturally, organically grown these relationships with the men in order to be included in the women's group, so I can help, and I can contribute, and basically recruit, because I'm very aware, and I'm acutely sensitive of my position, and my potential in a hiring process, and possibility of that I can steer um, a whole change a whole team effectively. However many women on a shortlist, I can put 5 women on a shortlist. They're bound to hire women, right? So I'm very aware of my position, and I'm trying my very best to use it in a positive way to get those ratios up and those numbers up.
Wow, that's fantastic. And that's a great idea. That's amazing. So, yeah.
But
Okay.
that's what I
So,
mean. That's sorry to answer your question. That's my networking, and that's me, what I'm interested in and what I'm want to contribute. If you're a CFO and if you're not from the geography, find the CFO groups and find the CFO networking roundtables. Politely ask to come along and sort of potentially meet the organisers separately and say, okay, not this year but next year or whatever it may be, and there will be completely dedicated focus clubs or round table sessions for CFO all the time. Should be anyway.
I think this is one of the best definition of networking. That's amazing. Okay, so Oscar, I have a few questions.
Sure,
We'll just take the relevant ones.
of
So
course.
Nikhil, yeah, hey Nikhil, thanks for joining in. So Nikhil has this question. How does Robert Walters initiate a relationship with a potential candidate? Does the team like to do a face-to-face introductory meeting and then take it forward? So
Yeah, good question. Very good. I think look, the best thing is, as I've alluded to, we don't post. I think we probably post about 10% of our jobs online. So the best way to go about it is not to sift through adverts, not to go through LinkedIn. It's to find our email address, approach us directly, get into our inbox, whichever inbox that is, and speak to us, call us, pick up the phone. How do we initiate a relationship? It depending on the country. If you're in a different country, this is a prime example. We can do a Zoom or a Teams, or we can initiate a conversation online. And then, of course, look, as I say, I'm in our boardroom. We've got 6 meeting rooms here. You come in, you meet, and also we have a soft commitment with our clients as well. We need to meet everyone we put forward to the roles, and not need to. It's also a lovely gauge on personality traits if you're going to get on with your future boss. You've got to. I think that's really important that you've got to, the chemistry has to be there, and we are sort of the guardians of that sort of connection eventually. So yeah, we like to meet over Zoom, then in person, and then keep the conversation going, check in every 2-3 weeks, and do our very best. I think the difference is Robert Walters is an incredibly. I've worked for Robert Walters for almost 5 years now. It's very personable, very human, conscientious. Middle East can be a tough place to be. It can be quite a harsh environment to be looking for a job in comparison to your home country or London or wherever it may be. So we have a human element to it, and we appreciate that it's not immediately straightforward. So we do our very best to get back to everyone. We can't reply to all 5,000, but the best way is to keep a relationship with the people, with the team, basically.
okay,
And
that's
then, as you say, take it forward. As and when something comes along, you'll be on our radar, and we'll send to you.
okay. That's amazing. So there's a question from sorry, there's one more. Okay, there's a question from Hardeep. Okay, so he's like, how do we initiate a one-on-one meeting with Oscar to discuss opportunities?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, just reach out. So, add me on LinkedIn, send me a message, or find my email on the website. Send me an email, or pick up the phone. Like, people have forgotten about the phone these days, I've got to the point where I'm declining Zoom meetings because, like, you're in the UAE, you've got my phone number. Just pick up the phone and call me. Like, people want a half an hour video call. It's like, just give me a call. Like, people have forgotten about the phone, and they send you an invite on your calendar. It's like, no, just a quick 5-minute call or a 10-minute call will be far more effective than a long video, half an hour. So, is there an opportunity to have one-to-one meeting? Yeah, of course. Anytime. We're always looking to meet good people.
Yes, and Hardeep, Oscar has his number on his LinkedIn profile, which is available to
Yeah,
everyone. Just
absolutely.
it's nicely hidden, over there. I just so if you just want
Yeah,
his number, just call him
yeah.
up.
Pick it up. If I don't pick up the phone, leave a message with Diana, and but Diana's our wonderful superstar on the front desk, and I'll call you back. Very, very simple.
Okay. Okay. So now there's another relevant question, with through Ayush. Ayush is asking this
Mm.
question. So how do you how do you advertise for your jobs because you don't post them on job boards?
That is a good question in this region, and you're right. We don't post enough. We should post more, but again, I apologise because there's no way that we can go through 5,000 people per one job. I think on average, each recruitment consultant should probably have somewhere between 15 to 25 jobs each. So on my team, maximum, that's like 100 plus jobs, and we're never going to advertise each job online. Sometimes we post them as a post on LinkedIn to get immediate responses. um, we don't. The best way is to keep in contact. The best way is to pick up the phone, say hello, how's the week been, anything new, please don't forget me. And that's that. The best people have stayed in our mind because they have been polite about it and been good and responsive and following up, basically.
Wow, that's interesting. Okay, we have a question from Deshna. Okay, so what should be the approach for finding an opportunity in the UAE for someone who has recently moved to the region?
Yeah, as I say, I don't want to keep repeating myself because I'll go round and round in circles and you'll get fed up of my boring voice. But come in, pick up the phone, give us a call, say hi, can I pop in, meet with us in the DIFC, meet with us in person. COVID's gone now, we can meet, we don't have masks. Sit down, send a CV, and let's have a proper chat. Um, it's not rocket science. It's just direct reaching out.
Okay, so for everyone asking the same question, it's very simple. Just pick up the call, pick up the phone,
Yeah.
and just make a call. They're kind enough to answer because they understand that the market is tough and people
Mm,
are curious to be a part of UAE. And yeah, so you're not going to
cool.
be, yeah, everyone's going to be polite. So I think that's the way. And the second one is networking. Be a part of groups. If you're in
Mm.
India, the UK, or in any South Africa, just be a part of groups which are already like relevant to your profile and meet people. Be curious, right?
Yeah,
That works.
absolutely, absolutely. And if that, I think there has to be an element of tenacity about it. I think you've got to treat it as a job. Looking for a job is a job, and if that one recruiter doesn't pick up the phone or doesn't email you back, like again, don't be rude about it, don't be persistent, but call them again, email them again, like try and speak to a different one. We have 48 on the floor here. If Diana doesn't pick up the phone, Marina might pick up the phone, Jeremy might pick up the phone. So be resilient about it and be an element of sort of tenacity with your search, just because we're all human beings. We can't remember every single person that gives us a call, but at some point in some time there will be an opportunity there, definitely. It's just
Yeah,
about timing as well.
this is amazing. This is some great advice because it's so simple, but it's so true when you're in the region,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay, so we've got a lot of questions, but on similar lines. Okay, so I'll go to the next one. My next question is, uh, Oscar, when I talk about UAE, okay, we've spoken a lot about it. We know there are a lot of opportunities. We'll also come to corporate tax and a lot of outsourcing that happens with the funds and all of those aspects. But you also
Mm.
mentioned about Qatar, Saudi. Okay,
Mm.
so what's the hiring happening there? We're all talking about UAE. So are there a lot of opportunities there? Give
Yeah,
us.
yeah.
Okay.
So many, so many. So out of 48 people at Rob Walters Middle East and Dubai, we have 13 that only recruit exclusively for Saudi Arabia. We fly in, fly out at the moment. Our plan is to open an office in, I don't know where, either Riyadh or Jeddah at some point this year. So yes, and we're talking large scale sort of giga projects, the likes of NEOM, the likes of basically PIF projects, Amala, Red Sea, different. Now there's the line, there's oxygen, there's so many giga projects. When I say giga, I mean multi-billion-dollar investment projects that they are yeah, incredibly reliant on Western expat, whatever it may be, global talent to come in and help them. It's slightly different. I think more so it's construction, it's engineering, it's procurement, it's not necessarily your compliance for a fund in the DIFC. It's quite different to that respect. But it's volume and it's mass hiring. So the only comment I'd make on Saudi is that when I first got here 6-7 years ago, people were able to move from a bank in the DIFC to a fund in Saudi for sometimes 3 or 4 times their salary. It doesn't really happen anymore. That's changed. That's not the case anymore. You will move for an uplift in Saudi, of course you will, but it'll be more like a normal, and say normal, you know, 20 to 40. I think if you're getting a 50% increase, you're doing, that's quite a good move now. So don't expect the three, or if they're there, they're a lot rarer. They're probably still there, but they're a lot rarer than they used to be, basically. So that's not happening as much anymore.
Okay, that's an interesting perspective because I always thought you get multiples of 3 or 4 times considering
Most
Saudi and
people do. Yeah,
okay.
that again, years ago, yes. Now, rarely. If you're a C-suite executive for a Disney company, and the Neom equivalent of Disney wants you, then yes, of course. But if you're the likes of yourself or myself or middle management or whatever it may be, I think that the average now is sort of 20 to 40, 50% increase if you're looking to move to Saudi.
Okay. So if I'm looking for if there's an opportunity in Saudi, say for a CFO or for a
Yeah.
compliance, because we're talking
Yeah.
about finance guys, what factors should a candidate take into consideration when making a decision? Hey, you know what, Saudi is the right place for me, or Qatar is the right place for me, or the UAE is the right place, How do you decide? What do you want to
It's a
talk about?
good it's a good question, Chantal, and thank you. I appreciate it. But I'm probably not the right person to answer that. I've never been. I feel a little bit embarrassed and a little bit ashamed that I've lived in Dubai and I've been traveling to work in Abu Dhabi for almost 7 years, but I've never been to Saudi or Qatar or Kuwait or any of these places. So I'm not really qualified to speak about that. However, I sit alongside a team of 13 guys who do fly in, fly out. And the main thing is the lifestyle choice. They do operate Sunday to Thursday still. It is far more conservative. You cannot access the type of lifestyle that you would have in Dubai or Abu Dhabi. You will be in a compound. It's a very, from what I've heard and what people tell me, it's a very different way of living. So you've got to consider your family, your children's education, your way of life, whatever uh, different enjoyments you may have here. You're quite possibly not going to get them there. Yeah, you will do eventually, but it's very much a lifestyle decision.
Okay, so it depends on your personal. You got to understand the pros, the cons, do a good
Yeah,
research, and then decide. Okay, so
absolutely,
it's an
absolutely,
individual
and it
decision.
works. It works very well for a lot of people. Um, I've never been there, so I can't comment too much.
Okay, that's exciting. Okay, my next question is: can you tell me about fintech? That in
Yeah,
2022, fintech was a big deal all over the world, including
yeah, yeah,
in
yeah.
UAE. So,
I
so should candidates look out for fintech opportunities? Like, there's a lot of hype.
absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely, I like fintech. Fintech's like the granddaddy of the techs, right? So tech is now overgrown. Now we have ed tech, education tech, we have reg tech, we have insure tech. We have. It feels like tech is now the sector, and all of the subsectors have come involved. But I actually think, and that was the fashion last year. But I actually think fintech is the granddaddy, and that was the first one to come around. And I like it. I'm bullish on fintech, whether that is for example, banking as a service or lending as a service or buy now, pay later or remittance type businesses. Um, Fintech will always be there. I think the banks need the fintechs and the fintechs need the banks. So they work very closely together and they complement each other. So just be prepared for potentially, and again, I say this with the greatest respects, and I've got a lot of very good clients who are fintech businesses. They may be a bit younger, they may be a bit newer, they may be a bit more embryonic in their growth. They're not going to be as developed and as stable and as structured with the frameworks that banks have. However, they're a lot more nimble. They're a lot more agile. They can do things quicker, and they can execute on decisions far more quicker because it's a couple of co-founders and a senior management team. It's not a huge hierarchy that a bank would have. So you have to be prepared for a quicker pace of working life in a fintech. I feel.
Okay. So, see, my question to you is this:
Mm,
when you look at the UAE, right? Everyone's an expat. Yeah, most like 90% of the population are expats, if I'm correct. Or I don't
yeah,
know. Yeah,
yeah.
right.
It's
So when
88. But yeah,
80, okay. So when you come to the UAE, you are coming here for the money, of course, and for a better lifestyle, and a lot of other factors, right? But it's more so you could live a well balanced, and money is a
Mm,
very important part, right? You come here on an agenda. Now, when you talk about fintech, so a lot of people who are doing very well, say you're working in a city and you're doing absolutely well, and then you're offered the CFO role at a fintech, right?
yeah.
So how do you decide? Do you take a pay cut, or so what? How do you negotiate? You must be a part of a lot of these negotiation conversations. So how does it work?
How does what work? Sorry, the negotiation of salary,
Yeah,
or
yeah. So do you have to take a pay cut, and then you join, and you of course you take an amount of risk. How does it work over here? Like back in India, you take a salary cut, then you get employee stock option plans, right?
right, right.
Yeah. So my question is, would you advise professionals, to join fintechs at a pay cut, or you can negotiate for the same salary compensation you were already getting?
So, so it's a case by case basis, and I can never really advise, or I can never tell anyone to join on a pay cut. Um, the nature of our business and the nature of what we do is that we try our very best to get people as much as possible, um, because we earn off their salary, um, but B, also it provides them the best opportunity in that current moment, and we feel that it's right, and we feel that market standards should improve. Um, I would never advocate someone to take a pay cut. It's very personal. If you're desperate for that role, and you really love the founders, and you really enjoy what they're doing, and um, you genuinely think that you can exist, and you can have a way of life and a way of living in that sort of remit, then yeah, the reward, and this is all about what do you look for in a role, right? If you love your work, you love people, product, and you're getting so much value out of your role and your company, then you work for free, right? Like some people just do not regard salary at all as important. But I will never tell people to take a pay cut. Again, different situations. If you've just recently been laid off in all these tech resignations and all these layoffs, then it's a harder challenge. The UAE and the GCC are a difficult place to exist without a job, because of medical insurance, because of different add-ons that your job gives you. So it's becoming easier and easier. But it's yes, you're right. I know what you're saying. Historically, fintech and the smaller businesses, they don't necessarily have the need, the means, or the willing to pay equivalent to the banks. But there's always that conversation about a long-term incentive plan. There's always a conversation about potential equity, shares, or a carry pool, whatever it may be. So a long-term, a 3 to 5 year plan that keeps you there, and you never know, it might IPO in that time, or, list publicly listed. So there are so many different factors to that, and it's a very difficult question for me to answer, because it's got to be personal. It's got to suit the individual's situation.
Fair enough. Okay, so we have a question from Ketan. Okay, he's talking about blockchain and Web3. So
Sure.
would you, yeah, so if you find this question relevant?
I see good opportunity in blockchain and Web3 technology. How, as a CA with certificate in blockchain and ERP, can leverage business opportunity in the UAE? Um, yeah, I mean, it's an incredibly broad question, isn't it? I think, look, blockchain is a ledger. It's very simply, it's a ledger. Web3 technology is very advanced technology. I mean, it's not completely revolutionizing either sector, in terms of, in comparison to the likes of crypto as a currency or whatever. It's new technologies and a new way to store things. I think blockchain and the ERP are a new wave of finance. Yeah, there's loads of business opportunities here. I think a CA, an accountant, he's talking about an accountant with a certificate in blockchain. Um, yeah, I think that's great. I think the fact that you've gone out and you've got a certificate in an area you think will be the future is absolutely right, and that's the right thing to do. Um, is it going to be, is it going to completely get you the job against? I can't tell you that, and I'm not sure. It's so many other factors that will differentiate yourself from the other person. But can leverage business opportunity in the UAE. Is he talking about him getting a job, or is him talking about his business? I'm not really sure. I
No, he's
understand.
just talking about in general, and then he's talking about a certification course. I mean, that
Yeah,
could be.
I think, yeah, I completely agree. I think that's exactly the sort of learning, exactly the sort of studying, away from the day-to-day job. Any kind of certificate will boost you and will differentiate yourself as and when these businesses do come to hire en masse. He will have a step up as opposed to the other candidate with the same letters after his name but without those certificates. So yeah, I would absolutely advocate that those types of certificates and courses are valuable. Just don't. My only advice or my only piece on that is don't get lost and down a rabbit's warren. Don't pay thousands and thousands of dollars to a course that you think is going to change your world, that you potentially don't have those thousands of dollars, and ultimately they're nice to have, but they're not a crucial. So don't spend fortunes on these courses, um, simply because they're nice to have and they're not going to completely change your life. They're not. If you've got the means and you're able to do it, then yeah, great. Differentiate yourself, benefit yourself, but don't rely on them. Don't put all of your eggs in that one basket of a blockchain ERP certificate.
It's amazing. Okay, so
Unfortunately,
we have this question from Harsha. Okay, so Oscar, with a lot of with corporate tax coming in, I see a lot of people moving here. A lot of
yeah,
people from different parts of the world who are finance guys, chartered accountants, they're all moving here,
yeah.
but they're not finding the right opportunities. To be very honest, right? Because you know we have okay. There's a prediction. Hey, tax
Mm.
professionals will be hired, but they're looking for professionals with international taxation and very specific. So, what, according to you, do you see a lot of companies hiring heads of tax, and building an entire tax team, or when will that happen? When do you predict that could happen?
Yeah, I think it's slightly different to the conversation that people are having in commerce and industry. Commerce and industry businesses, FMCG, retail, real estate, whatever it may be, they require very specific taxation accountants, CTAs and all the rest of it. I think within financial services, within funds, within hedge funds, within private equity businesses, they don't necessarily need that huge requirement that corporate tax coming in. Yes, of course it's going to be an element. Of course it's going to be a consideration, but I don't feel that financial services will require as many tax professionals as commerce and industry. For whatever reason, I'm not too sure. I'm not a tax accountant, but I feel that the legal firms will advise the commerce and industry businesses to have a tax team, 4 or 5 people in a retailer, for example, as opposed to a hedge fund that outsources a lot to other geographies and other SPV geographies. They might have a small resource. They're not, from what the conversations I'm having, they don't even have CFOs here. They outsource accounts. They have one. There's a fund here that's almost 60 people. They have one compliance person in the whole business. So they're not going to have teams of corporate tax people overnight. And it's going to be a very slow, gradual thing. Bear in mind, yes, of course, it comes in this summer, but the reality is you won't really need to action anything until July next year. So it's a long way off. I think it's not going to be as big a buzz as it has been in commerce or the legal teams that we've seen so far. I've had none of my clients have called me up looking for tax people. It's still the traditional compliance, ops, direct investment. Um, I literally haven't had one tax conversation so far. That will change, I'm sure, but nothing so far.
Okay, but that's a very interesting point that you just mentioned. A lot of your clients don't even have a CFO; they outsource a lot of their work. So that's another question which someone has over here. Uh,
Yeah.
there are a lot of people who outsource their work to, say, Chennai in India or Bangalore in India, right?
Yeah,
Because it's less expensive, and there's manpower is pretty expensive here for
yeah.
mundane stuff, right? So how can they approach clients over here, say hedge funds and investment banks and smaller private equity firms, to help in their accounting, in their CFO services, their tax services? Like, would you have an idea? That's a question I just, yeah.
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a lot harder, I must admit. It's a lot harder. It's a lot smaller subsector. It's a much smaller community. These businesses, invariably, their portfolio managers or their analysts or their traders, they're very focused on front office and revenue generating roles and forward looking. Prospect how the markets are, how the equity markets or the whatever they're trading or the technology behind the quantitative systematic trading, as opposed to their tax returns in 18 months. So basic English doesn't interest them. So they don't, if that doesn't, they're not going to have it, and they're just going to outsource it, and it's going to take up their time where they could be doing something else. So it's incredibly difficult to find them. I must admit the DIFC is very good. It hosts a lot of seminars, a lot of roundtables, a lot of private events as well. The ADGM in Abu Dhabi is very conducive, and I must admit ADGM in Abu Dhabi really want to showcase and really want to push this agenda forward. So please do think of Abu Dhabi as well as Dubai when you look at the UAE and your job search.
Okay, that's amazing. So from what I understand, to the question, okay, there are several private equity funds, investment funds, and fintech startups. So one way, we go to the start again is, if you want to meet them, you have to network. There's DIFC, there's ADGM, attend
Mm,
events, meet people, and that, I think that's the only way you can get in touch with them. And of course, stay in
mm.
touch with the recruiting firms like Robert Walters and Robert
Yeah.
Half and all of them. Pick up a call and say hi. That seems to be the only way for now.
Definitely. I mean, those are two really good ways. I would highly always recommend being here. Come here as a working holiday. So actually see the people, meet the people, try and do it in person. Zoom's good, Teams is good, but we're getting we sort of Zoom fatigue these days, right? We've had enough of these Zoom calls. So get here in person, try and attend events. Something really old school, and I haven't spoken about for ages. Old fashioned London, like print off loads of CVs and turn up to the office. Put it under the door. Put it behind reception. Say, look, I'm here. I'm on the ground. I'm keen. I'm willing. I'm ambitious. Here's my CV. If your boss is around or if your CEO is around, I'd love to have a chat with them. You just never know. You've got to think a bit more creatively these days.
That's amazing. I do that all the time. I'm always texting. It's so difficult to pick up a call and just say hi. So used to texting.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a big lesson. Cool. So I think we've answered everything, and you've given us straight answers to all our questions. So if anyone has any question, you can connect with Oscar. He's more than happy to, help you guys out and answer your questions. And you have to be patient because he gets a lot of requests. And I guess, yep, that's about it. So Oscar, anything that I've missed you want to add? Or
No, not really. I just thank you. I appreciate it, Chantal. And that's a really good point to finish on. Is patience. It takes a lot longer um, in this region than it does in London or New York or Singapore. It's also a very small and shallow market. If we take a step back, the DIFC in Dubai has only been going 16 years. Abu Dhabi ADGM has only been going 7 years. The country is only 51 years old. So it's a very shallow market. It's a lot smaller than the London market or the Indian market. So we don't have as many businesses here. We don't have as many openings here. So we a lot of us come here, myself included, by the way, a lot of us come here and think, oh, I'll walk into hundreds of opportunities because of XYZ and ABC. But the reality is it's a much smaller market, and a lot of people don't fully appreciate that and understand that, because they just assume that it's going to be another Singapore, London, New York, and there's going to be hundreds of places for everyone and you can walk in. So please be patient, please persevere, and be polite about it, and we'll get back to you, definitely. All right.
Okay, that's amazing. Oscar, I have one question which someone has just
Sure,
asked me.
go for it.
What can one expect if you're hiring for a CFO or a financial director? What is the compensation one can expect? That's one. And what do the banking sector hire in terms of senior finance professionals? What are their hirings like?
First question: how long's a piece of string? It completely varies. Complete bulge bracket bank in the DIFC can be X, Y, Z dirham a month, whereas a family office, small business, small AUM, small team can be completely the other end of the spectrum. So I'm not going to give you exact figures because it's just unfair. But and that's the reason why you talk to me and my team. We can digest the CV and the profile and how many years, what companies, what sort of level, what you should be aiming at, and what the market is here, and we can come back and give you an exact number. The second question was, what do they look for? They look for what we've already said. A good culture fit, team fit is so important. I think that gone are the days of the New York or the London banker reputation where they're all rude and horrible and sort of jumping on each other's throats for a deal or whatever. I think good people want to do good business in the UAE. You want to enjoy the transaction. You want to grow together. You want to partner with the right people. You don't want to be fighting for the last dirham on a deal. You want to enjoy your work. So good people buy from good people. So it really does, and I've seen this happen. People hire and don't hire on the strength of how people treat people and behave, and how they're conscientious to their team, and how they interact with a potential client over the other side of the table. If you're a direct investor as opposed to a bank, so it really matters. It really matters. The soft skills are so important.
Okay. So yes, I mean, Oscar, we've answered a lot of questions, and that was a great point. Kindness is so important here, right?
It is.
Humanity is stands first. I think that's the middle.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, and it'll only come back around in a positive way. And bosses will see that, and CFOs will take that into account. And if you're polite, and if you're useful, and if you're of use, and if you're conscious of your people around you, they will want to hire you, and they will want to build a team around you. And if you're that sort of rude, abrasive, old-fashioned London banker or New York banker, they're going to think, actually, we've got a million one CVs that do exactly the same job, and we'd much rather work with him or her and have her on our team, because that's the theme, and that's the strain of thought from the whole team eventually. So yeah, be nice, be kind.
Yes. Yes, Oscar, that's a great message. And thank you so much. It's almost an hour. Thank you so much for your time for
Yeah,
answering
no, thank you. I
no,
really
for
appreciate you
answering
having me on.
for answering everything so patiently. Sometimes the same thing again, but you did.
Okay.
So thanks a